What's going on, everybody? How you doing out there? What's going on, my Jets family? I want to thank you guys, like always, for tuning in to the Take Flight Spit and Fire podcast. Happy to be with you, man. You got me, Harrison Glazer. I have a guest coming. He's running a little late, unfortunately. He should be with us in just a few minutes. Got Tommy here. Appreciate you, my man. Appreciate all you guys out there. What's up, Tommy? What's going on, my man? Appreciate the name with the exclamation points. Love it. You're excited. I'm excited. As you guys may or may not have heard, we're going to be joined by the one, the only Buffalo Jet fan. You guys have probably seen him on his channel. Could give him, a shout out quickly before, he comes in, but he'll be joining us in just a few minutes. But you guys have probably seen him. You could see him on, let me mute my phone. My apologies, guys. You can see him on his YouTube channel, as you know, the Buffalo Jet fan. You can YouTube that. Just Google it. Excuse me. You can also find him on Twitter as well. Same thing, the Buffalo Jet fan. He's got an excellent presence there, and I can't wait to talk to him. So he should be joining us in just a few minutes. He said he was running a little late. Again, I'm excited to be here with you guys. I appreciate you all joining us. Appreciate you all being here. I didn't want to, be late. Have you guys figure out what's going on? So figured I'd pop in. We could talk. You and me. we'll have a conversation while we're waiting for him. But as you guys know, I try to bring guests on. When I can, try to bring on, had Green Bean on before, I've had Matt on before. You guys know Matt O'Leary, obviously. I've had Richie on from Jets Media. As you guys remember, I had CBS analyst McFadden on the other day. It's good, it's always fun to chat it up. I love talking to you guys. As you guys know, I bring you, my content throughout the week. I bring you some short takes and stuff, and we chat. We talk it up, and I like to, tell you guys what I'm thinking. But it's good to have other people here as well, get some other perspectives, talk about some stuff. So shout out to Daniel as well. We got Mr. Daniel Faust here. Daniel saying, I want to place an $100 bet that the Jets make the playoffs. So I was going to say that, man. So I was going to say, let's, while we're waiting for a Buffalo Jet fan, again, should be with us. He said, 5 minutes or so, about like 2 minutes ago. So shouldn't be too long. Should be with us soon. But you say you want to place a $100 bet for the Jets to make the playoffs. Man, I was going to say, just quick, we could talk about, any topics you guys want, because I have a bunch of good stuff planned. As you guys know, always do try to bring you guys some good stuff. So I have a bunch of good topics planned to talk about with Mr. Buffalo Jet fan. Excuse me, when he arrives. So we're not going to bring that stuff up yet. But, you guys, if you want to bring up a topic, bring up a question, as you say, I want to place a $100 bet that the Jets make the playoffs. I mean, the odds would be interesting to see what the odds are right now. I don't know if you know, Mr. Daniel, if you want to share them. I'm not sure what the odds are at the moment. I mean, it's a good bet, and you guys, we could talk about that quick. I've said that before, pivot to that, for a quick minute. As you guys know, in the past, I've always been cautiously optimistic, with my, with last year, basically. Last year, I was cautiously optimistic, with the new quarterback, obviously rookie quarterback. I expected Zach to eventually be great, but as we've talked about here, it's not immediate, right? We talked a lot about how Patrick Mahomes is the exception, right? Not the standard. That's not what normally happens. It takes guys a little while to come on. Right? Takes little guys. So I see a lot of you guys coming in. Buffalo Jet fans going to be joining us in just a minute. Appreciate you guys being there. I should be popping in just in about a minute or so. We're having them join us. For now, bring me any questions. We're just chatting it up. Any topics you guys want to talk about. But Daniel asked about, $100 bet about the Jets making the playoffs. And I was saying before how usually I'm very cautiously optimistic. And last year, rookie quarterback, who again, I think Zach can be great. You guys know it. I've said it before. We've talked about it here. Love this kid. Love his potential. But it's not automatic, right? We said Mahomes is the exception, right? Not the standard. Usually takes a little while. It takes time to figure it out. Joe Douglas, putting the right pieces together, right, man? We've talked about that as well. Just how hyped we are as Jet fans for where we're going, right? The direction that this team is heading in. We look at the offensive talent, the weapons around Zach, which me and Buffalo Jet fan are going to talk all about. The backfield, the offensive line protecting him. The defense this year. It's looking good, right? On paper, we got to see it show, right? But on paper, all the pieces are there, right, man? All the pieces are absolutely there. So like I said, last year, my approach was cautious optimism. Again, rookie offensive coordinator was another one. And we saw that, right? Toward the beginning of the season, we've talked about it here, that, Mike LaFleur struggled a little bit and the offense struggled a little bit in those first few weeks. And I was one, me and Green Bean, we talked about it. We had that episode where we questioned LaFleur a little bit. Well, he figured it out. He showed he can be the guy. He understands how to make this system work and work with these pieces, be versatile. And it's been awesome. It's really kicked in. So again, cautious optimism because I knew there's so much potential here, but so many first-year guys, right? Rookie head coach in Saleh, rookie quarterback in Zach Wilson. Excuse me. Rookie offensive coordinator in Mike LaFleur. And the team was one of the youngest teams last year in the entire NFL. This year, I gotta say, man, again, I try to tamper my expectations. I say that, and you guys know it all the time. I try not to get too carried away. But man, I really feel, man, I feel like this is and I've said it before, this is an 8-9 win minimum team. I do honestly feel that way. I look at where we stand, and again, a lot has to come into the chemistry, right? Zach Wilson's got to kick it up, and I do believe he's going to be the guy, and all the pieces around him are there for him to be successful. And we've talked about that, right? How many have said it's all on Zach now because Joe has showed, well, here's a quality football team. Here's a quality young team. Talented wide receiver core, talented tight end room, super talented backfield. And we're talking about how special Breece is going to be. We know how special he's going to be. That offensive line, what are the potential to be one of the best? What he's done with the defense. He's put all the pieces there. All the pieces are there. I truly believe Zach will be the guy. We've talked about it. I've said I love his knowledge, right? His football IQ. Everyone talks about how well he learns, how he focuses on the little things. Always wants to get the little things right, right? So Daniel points out to that next point of it. He says the percentage of this, and again, Daniel, I don't know if you looked it up. I don't know what the odds are for the Jets to win the playoffs. I don't know what they are to potentially make the playoffs. But I like them potentially squeaking in. I mean, with 8 or 9 wins, you can squeak in. And that's just, again, I felt like that was the base when we talked about that on the, what do you call it? When the schedule came out. I couldn't think of the word. What do you call that thing? When they play those games. When the schedule came out, I'm cracking myself up. Remember we were talking about, I looked at it. I thought 8 or 9 games really swing a few, right? Swing 1 or 2 or 3 in another direction. We could be a double-digit team. So again, last year, cautious optimism. Loved what we were building. Loved the direction. But a lot of things that had to come into place. Well, man, I think those pieces are in place. I think Zach is ready to make that major leap. I think he's committed and shown that with, again, his body, the transformation of his body, right? Just taking a look, seeing if Buffalo will be joining us soon. He should be. Excuse me. But the transformation of his body, right? Showing the commitment to his craft and looking so much better, right? Believe we got him right now. I'm excited. So I'm really excited, you guys. I'm happy to be bringing you guys. I'm going to bring him in right now. The Buffalo Jet fan. What is up, my man? So excited for you joining me.
Absolutely, man. I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, this is awesome. I really, really appreciate you coming on. I was just telling the people, they could find you on YouTube. You got Twitter going on. And yeah, man, some really, really good stuff. I love the content that you've been putting out.
Appreciate it. Same to you. Good stuff.
Thank you, man. Thank you. I figured, jump in, we could talk a little bit about the acquisition of Kwon Alexander, right? Because he's the guy that the Jets just got, big deal, and was making a lot of noise, and rightfully so, by the talent he brings to that linebacker room. So I'd love to hear your take on bringing in Kwon and what that linebacker room now looks with him in.
Well, I think the first thing was really shocking when we saw the sticker of how much it costs. I think originally I'm thinking, it's going to cost maybe $3-4 million for a 1-year rental. I mean, remember, Harrison, we spent $7 million on Jared Davis, who didn't do anything. So to get Kwon for a cap hit of $1 million, you talk about him and Quincy Williams now making $3 million combined, 2-year guys who can be starting linebackers. I think, coach is saying all the right things. We got to see where he's at. Nothing's guaranteed. And I like Quincy Williams, but I think Kwon Alexander ends up getting most of the reps in the 4-2-5 next to CJ Mosley over Quincy Williams. I think, we tend to overvalue our own players, and I like Quincy Williams. I like him as a starter in the 4-2-5. I love Quincy Williams as a rotational linebacker. Think about Harrison and everybody in the chat, some from familiar faces. What's going on, guys? Think about this. If I were to tell you, this time last year, none of us knew who Quincy Williams was for the most part, except maybe Quinn Williams' brother. That's all we knew about him. If I were to tell you this time last year, hey, we're going to pick up this guy off the scrap heap, off waivers from Jacksonville, and he's going to come in and he's going to start a whole bunch of games for us. and he's going to get a couple sacks, a couple forced fumbles, and then we're going to keep him around the following year, and he's going to have a reserve role and come in on blitz packages and play 35-40% of downs. You'd be like thrilled. Sign me up for that. And I think if we look at it from a different angle, if Quan Alexander was on the Jets last year and we re-signed him and then we bring in Quincy Williams, we'd all say there's no way this Quincy Williams guy is starting over Quan Alexander, right? So I think there's a little perspective there. If you look at it from a third person point of view, I think Quan Alexander immediately becomes the second best linebacker on this team, but it's a good problem to have. Hey, if Quincy beats him out, that's awesome. But I think Quan's ability to cover will make him more of a 3-down linebacker, and I think he gets a majority of the reps next to CJ Mosley.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, man. I was actually thinking exactly the same on Twitter. I was thinking, I put it out also that I thought Quan agreed is the second best linebacker on this team next to CJ Mosley. And yeah, you mentioned, the two of them next to each other really have the potential to be something really awesome, like really, really awesome. Like Mosley, last year just being totally disrespected by PFF. Like crazy. Right. Like dude was flying around the field, looking outstanding, like definitely one of the best linebackers in the league. And Quincy, was looking, pretty good. Like I felt like, when we got him, like, he's very fast, he's very athletic, he's a good tackler, and he started to show, in pass coverage in like the Saints game. So like you say, it's a good problem to have. I couldn't agree more. And I think I agree. Quan's going to come in, especially him and CJ, be those two guys, but you got Quincy as like a third guy. And then I really like the potential of guys like Jamie and Sherwood and, Hamza Nasruddin. Like you bring in Quan, so it'd be interesting to see how much time they really get. But man, when we signed Hamza, like he was a guy I was really high on. Like, I don't know how you felt about those two guys, but I liked both of them, but I really feel like Hamza's got a lot of potential. We just haven't really seen that much from him.
Yeah, I think Hamza has more potential as a coverage backer. I think Sherwood is probably a little bit more physical. Hamza's a better athlete. I like them both. We'll see. In the 5th round, you're kind of throwing darts, and they're both asked to play a new position, and they both got hurt last year. So if we were penciling them in for significant roles, I think that would have been a mistake. If you get guys who can be depth and play on special teams in the 5th round, that's gold. And that looks like the role they're going to play this year. And then if they show promise beyond that, then maybe we consider, all of our 3 top linebackers are going to be free agents at the end of the year. So this is an evaluation year to me for those 2 guys. And even if one of them shows that they can be a starter, then that's an absolute home run when you're talking about that late in the draft and considering they're playing different positions than they did in college.
No, without a doubt. Not just, talking about the versatility of Joe Douglas. Like, I remember when that draft happened, like I was looking at tons of linebackers, like who could we take? Who's going to fit the 4-3 really well? And I wasn't even thinking of, safeties. And then right when he took Jamie and Sherwood, I was like, oh, that's a great move. And I know I wasn't the only one. Like I've heard a lot of Jet fans saying that a lot of them immediately, like me, when they saw Joe do that, were like, I really kind of wish the pick was Hamza. And then he winds up taking Hamza later on. So yeah, that just worked out awesome. Yeah, man. But yeah, I think that linebacker room just looks so much stouter. And yeah, man, when Quan Alexander's healthy, just excellent talent. Gotta stay healthy. I mean, I think he's only played like 1 full season and missed like 4 games, like minimum each season other than that. But when healthy, man, he's legit. Like he's really, really legit.
Yeah, I think we'll probably get, the history tells us we'll probably get 12 games out of him. And for the money we're paying him, that's absolutely fine.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I'm with you. So I also would love to think, last week, Connor Hughes, he always says, the Jets mailbag where people shoot him questions. Someone asked him about the safety position, and he said that from what he'd heard, that the Jets like the duo of LaMarcus Joyner and Jordan Whitehead, and they like the veteran dynamic that the two of them brought. And I love that because, like, that was a big thing. Like, I like those two. Like, I think Joyner has a lot of potential at safety. I'd love to, what you think about that news.
Well, I'll split it with him. Jordan Whitehead, love. I mean, the value that we got for his contract, for him being in his prime and what he's going to bring to this defense is incredible. He's a leader. He's going to be the quarterback of the secondary. CJ Mosley kind of quarterbacks the middle and the front 7. That's really important. And he's obviously a thumper. He's a tone setter. He's going to be able to essentially play linebacker on certain situational short yardage. And I think he's got better athleticism and range to be if we're going to go cover 1, you don't want to take Jordan Whitehead away from the line of scrimmage too much because that's what he does best. But I think out of all the safeties on this roster, he still is the best athlete and range in terms of, playing center field. I don't think we really have a true free safety on this roster. Ideally, that'd be Ashton Davis. He's got the length and the athleticism to do that. But man, it's been tough. We all like the Ashton Davis pick for the most part, the athleticism. We'll see. Joyner, I'm less bullish about. Now, I do agree with Connor Hughes in terms of the veteran dynamic, because at the back end, communication and continuity is just as important as talent. And oftentimes, when you think about big plays in the NFL, big touchdowns, half the time it's just somebody getting cooked. The other half the time, it's a blown assignment, and then you got secondary guys pointing their fingers at each other in the end zone, right? So if we can do away with the latter, that's huge. I'd love to see Jason Pinnock get it because he's younger, he's the better athlete, and you could have him and Whitehead starting next to each other the next 3 years. But LaMarcus Joyner is a significant upgrade over a majority of the safeties we were rolling out there last year. So it's an upgrade for sure.
Yeah, and you mentioned with Whitehead the the contract, like I think it's like 2 years, like 17 million. Like it's nothing. Like for the talent Whitehead brings to the table, like that dude is making no money. Like Joe Douglas is just, showing it with trade, showing it with everything. But with the guys he brings in, he's really made some excellent contracts. Like Whitehead is really not making a lot of money, but man, I love like the potential of him. Like you look at Whitehead, like that dude is just shredded. Like he looks like I don't know if you remember, like back in the day, like they had those images of like Laron Landry out, and everyone was like, "Damn!" like Jordan Whitehead is huge. He's gonna be one of those guys. Yeah. Like people see him coming, and they're gonna be like, "Oh, okay," and then he hits them, and they're like, "Wait, what just?" Like he's like a heat seeking, and he talked about that. Like in his pressers, he said, when in the gym he commits himself to, making sure that he can, hit hard and do that kind of thing. And you mentioned, the center field thing. That's another big thing with him. He also mentioned that he wants to be more vocal, be more of a leader, call out stuff in that center field position. But I love that you mentioned Pinnock, man. They like the veterans, and I love that too. But man, Pinnock, like I love the potential of him. Like I had like a whole episode talking about it, like just the other week. Like he was a rookie. Like I liked when we signed him. Like I looked at all the numbers that he put up on Pitt, and I'm like, this is a dude that kind of played on an island and did pretty well. Like he was pretty good in coverage. And I put some numbers up and showed that in some categories, like he actually had the lowest completion percentage allowed of all corners, like in 2020. Which is like crazy, like low. I know, like it blew my mind. Like I remember I put this out back in 2020 when we drafted him, like lower than JC Horn. There were other categories. He was similar to Stingley. I'm like, how did I miss this kid? See, I love his potential. Like I really, really do. I'm totally with you, man.
Yeah, definitely. And no one's going to outwork him. He's physical. Obviously has some coverage skills. He'll put a body on you. I think what remains to be seen is how well can he track and make plays on the ball in the air. I like him better going forwards than I like him going backwards. But now he's got a full. He only switched to safety like halfway through the year, so now he's gonna get some reps in. And again, even if he could be that third safety and be a good backup, I think it was a 5th round pick, so we'll take that. We'll take that all day.
Yeah, we talk about, teams do 3 safety sets all the time. It's always good to have. I definitely think you got him, you got Parks that can come in, but I do really like him a lot. And yeah, like you mentioned last year with switching him to safety, like you got a guy like Brandon Echols, came out of nowhere, was playing really well. I was even thinking, and I'm like, he's a big dude. Like you watch him play, he's very physical, he's very long, he's got good hands. It's like, let's see this kid play safety. And yeah, it'd be interesting to see what he's got. But I know you mentioned with LaMarcus Joyner. The one thing I really like about him, though, is that when he exclusively played safety, he was pretty good. Like I think it was, I don't want to mix it up. I think it was mainly with the Rams, I believe, and then the Raiders switched him. I could have it mixed. It's very possible I mixed it up. But when he played exclusively safety, like his numbers are really legit. So like that's why I'm just excited. Like, and I also look at like people say he's older, but like I've mentioned, I'm talking to the people on the show. I look at guys like in safety. I use like Charles Woodson as an example. Like he started at cornerback like at 30, 31, starts to slow down a little bit, moving to safety, becomes an all-pro. Because like you can have guys at safety at 32, 33. So like I could be wrong, but I'm thinking he might fit that free safety like roaming spot really, really nice with Jordan Whitehead. Like I think they could complement each other really well.
Well, you're definitely right on the first part. The Raiders moved him to nickel corner, and he's just not.
I wasn't sure if I mixed it.
Yeah, no, you got it. The Raiders moved him to nickel corner, and he's not a nickel corner. He didn't play well at nickel corner. But if you look back The last time he got like starting role at free safety in 2018 with the Rams, he played pretty good at safety. You know, that was quite some time ago, and he missed all last year with an injury. I think that they must have really liked something that they saw in him, though, to have him miss a whole year, and then for them to it was one of the first re-signings, and not for no money. You know, he's got a $2-3 million deal. It wasn't a vet minimum deal, so I think they were impressed with him last camp, and I think it has a lot to do with just the mental aspect. You know, you can't have a bunch of kids in the secondary. You know, those are two spots where it's like the offensive line and the secondary. You can't just run a bunch of kids out there because the communication is going to kill you. So we could do a lot worse than LaMarcus Joyner. I think that it's, you know, I put out a tweet last year. I think it just goes out to show you how improved this defense is, because last year when we lost LaMarcus Joyner, it felt like a devastating loss. We were like, oh my God, because, you know, we already lost Lawson and Curry, and then, you know, May was shortly after. So we're like, oh my God. Now this year, LaMarcus Joyner might be the worst starter on our defense. I mean, and that's no slight against him. That just shows you how improved the overall defense is.
That's a good point. And you think about it, I'm like going through the whole defense in my head now. That's a very valid point. Yeah, that's true. It's a lot more talented. And that kind of brought me to, like, you know, something I was mentioning today, you know, because so many people were like, you know, crapping on the offense with Zach struggling. And that's what happens when you have a better defense. Like, the defense is so much better this year. So it's natural that the offense is going to struggle. And obviously DJ Reed's going to get a pick, and you're going to see the elite guys be elite. Like, having that better talent is going to, you know, make the offense look in practice. They're going to struggle at times. But if anything, it's a good thing because it's only going to make them better. It's preparing them for better defenses. So it's like that whole concept, you know, of just iron sharpening iron. So, like, I know, like, you know, you hear people, like, you know, getting upset with Zach Wilson, you know, struggling in camp, in practices. I come at it. I think it's a good thing in a way, because, again, the defense is that much better, and it's only going to push the offense to be better themselves.
Yeah, I think with camp, defense is typically always ahead of offense early, because offense
That's
is
true
more
too. Yeah.
chemistry and continuity and communication based. And then obviously, when you don't have the pads on like they did last week, it's really hard to block anybody without pads on. I will say, I'm never going to overreact to one individual practice, but as the weeks go on, you know, we always do the Allen Iverson thing. We're talking about practice, right? But 80%, I'm telling you, over the next month, 80% of the trends we see in camp, we're going to see him on the field. Carl Lawson's looking like an animal right now. Guess what? Spoiler alert, come September, Carl Lawson's going to be a bad dude. Ditto that, Elijah Moore. And then that might go for some people who are underperforming as we head into the dog days of August. So right now, there's no need to be over concerned. I do want to see eventually some days where Zach Wilson and this first team offense gets the better of the second team defense, because at the end of the day, this defense has been much improved. But what do you think is the ceiling on this defense in terms of how high they can finish in the league this year? Like top 15, top 20, top 10? Like, what's the ceiling? What do you think?
Man, it's kind of interesting.
Realistically.
It's like, yeah, and it's like last year. There's a lot of young variables, like, you know, like you got Sauce Gardner. You know, how quickly is he going to come on, and, you know, how
Yeah.
fast is he going to be the guy? You got a lot of veteran presence. I like the pass rush. And I've said before, you know, with this defense, so many people don't
Yeah.
get it. Like, you look at it with the Niners, the whole thing is predicated on the pass rush. Like, if the pass rush isn't there, it's why you have so many struggles. Like last year, the linebackers, they weren't great, but they weren't as bad as they looked, because they were playing, you know, a lot of coverage, a lot of cleanup. When the defensive line isn't there, the whole thing falls apart. So I really like the defensive line right now, man. I think they got a good pass rush. Uh, Individually, I think the secondary and the defensive line could be top of the league. I would say overall, maybe optimistically top 10, but probably top 15,
Okay.
I would say.
So in average to slightly above average defense, I think that we would all sign up for that in a minute. It was 32nd ranked last year. So coming back to Zach and the offense, now obviously right now he doesn't have his left tackle. Garrett Wilson's one of his best weapons, a rookie. Okay, so not based on what we've seen just the past 5 days, I don't care. But between now and, you know, throughout camp and into the second, third week of August, yeah, I want to see Zach Wilson be able to move the ball on what will be an average to slightly above average defense. Okay, our defense is much improved, but it's not like Zach Wilson's going against the 2000 Baltimore Ravens in camp, right? So eventually, as the days goes on, I want to see that happen. And we saw a little bit with Elijah Moore getting the best of DJ Reed today after DJ Reed had been shutting him down a little bit. Corey Davis and Sauce have been going back and forth. So, and I think just the Jets fan in me, it feels like every year, Harrison, we just hear the defense is ahead of the offense. The defense is ahead of the offense. And then we say, oh, it's just this week. Oh, it's just the second week of camp. Oh, it's just preseason. Oh, it's just week one. And then we're looking at mock drafts in October. You know what I mean? I feel like we kind of wish away the summer and then it sneaks up on us. So in pretty short order, I do want to see this offense gelling, but it's no time to panic. That's for sure.
You bring up the defense thing, man. That's funny because that was like my childhood. Like I remember, like my dad always yelling, like, "Put the defense on the field. They have a better chance of scoring." Like crazy stuff like that. But shout out
sometimes, man. Some of those the end of the Rex Ryan years, man. It felt like you were more comfortable with the defense on the field. It's crazy.
It's true, man. It's true. But shout out to all you guys. I appreciate, all you guys being there, listening and, to the conversation between us. If you have any questions, like always, bring them in the chat, anything you want to bring up, any comments you want to make. Shout out to Lindels. Says, what do you think of the Solomon Thomas, maybe a hidden gem? Love to hear what you think. Is I actually like the potential of it. I think it was a great signing because I look back, to what Solomon Thomas was. And I talked about it when we signed him, excuse me, that when he came out of Stanford, where he excelled was on the inside of the defensive line. That was always his position. That's what made him really good and got him drafted. Then they tried him at defensive end, and it clearly, we know it didn't go well. It was a failed experiment. So I kind of look at this Robert Saleh going, okay, because it was him, obviously, it was with the 49ers. I took a guy, I used him out of place. I know I was wrong. He goes to Joe. He's like, I know I did this wrong. Give me a chance to make it right. Like, I know what Solomon Thomas can be if used right. The potential's there. And we saw it last year with Oakland, I think. Last year with Oakland playing it pretty much almost the whole season on the interior of that defensive line. He was pretty good. He actually had almost a career, I think either a career year in most categories or he was really, really good. So I think, like having him there, you got JFM who's going to be kicking inside a lot with the defensive ends we got. Obviously, you got Quinn in there. I think that's a really interesting combination. So, yeah, I think he could be a potential hidden gem, especially on the inside of that defensive line where he hasn't really gotten his chance to shine.
Yeah, well, it's there's no such thing as a bad 1 year, $2 million contract, right? So it's all upside with Solly Thomas. The thing is, I like that we're getting a good character guy. We're getting a guy 26 years old, right in his prime. Versatility, inside, outside, durability. And last year, 3.5 sacks. You're right. It was a career high for him. So yeah, I love the Solly Thomas move. And I think that you can tell, I think we're seeing a motivated Sheldon Rankins in camp because last year, Sheldon, he was decent as a pass rusher, but he was awful against the run. And already in camp, he looks slimmer. We're hearing reports, from Wazak, Jets beat reporter who gives us the emoji report card each day. Sheldon Rankins got a gold star. So we love to see that. And I think he's going to push. If Rankin starts playing the run like he did last year, I think we're going to see a lot of Solly Thomas in for him. And 280, it's a little light for the 4-3, but I think definitely second, third down. I love it. And he can play end in a pinch too. So adds depth and versatility. Love Solly Thomas in the building.
I agree with you, man. Yeah. So, we were talking before about, the safeties who I felt like, you look at how good the corner position is. I think the safety is going to be really good because of that. And that kind of brings me to the next question. And I think it's an interesting one. And I posed it, on Twitter and, thought about it as we look at, what we have in the secondary. And it's going to be fun seeing teams throw against us when this really starts jiving. Like when these guys that we have in this corner room really start to jive and come alive, especially guys like Sauce. So, man, that's my question for you. Our team's going to be able to throw against us.
I'm really excited about the potential of this secondary as a coverage unit. And I know we run a lot of zone, but man, on big third downs, I like Sauce, DJ Reed, and Michael Carter just buckling down against 3 wide receivers in 11 personnel. And then now we have the defensive front where we feel like we can get home with 4. Do we have a game wrecker? A Myles Garrett, a TJ Watt? No, but we have 7 or 8 guys who can win one-on-one matchups. So if our 4 down linemen are Quinnen, JFM, Lawson, and I don't know, either JJ or Jacob Martin, we can get home with 4. And then if you can get home with 4 and you can cover man to man, now you got 1 or 2 defenders who can drop into a cover 1 or bring in an extra blitzer. It allows you so much more flexibility. I would like to see this team blitz a little bit more. Situationally, big third downs. I would like to see this team, especially week 1 against Baltimore. If Lamar Jackson is going to throw touchdown passes to Devin Duvernay over Sauce Gardner's head, and that's how we lose, so be it. I want to see us put the pressure on opposing quarterbacks until that they prove that they can beat our top 3 corners, and even going 4 deep if there's an injury with Bryce Hall, who we know is a solid cornerback too.
Yeah, and that's actually a really, really good point you make, because people talk about the secondary and covering the pass, but the pass rush is really obviously, they're not covering, but it's almost as important in that sense where obviously, the guy can't stay in coverage too long. And that kind of brings back to, like we mentioned earlier when I brought up, how last year the pass rush struggling as much as it did, it just threw everything, out of whack. Like the guys in the coverage, like even though Hall was playing well, Echols was playing well, he can't cover for too long. So, that was a big thing like we had last year. But yeah, like you said, with that pass rush being a lot better, I think it definitely makes the secondary a lot better. And you mentioned Sauce, you mentioned DJ. I feel like a guy that wasn't getting mentioned enough, and I talk about him a lot, is a guy like Bryce Hall. And I think it's interesting, that he's gotten like some recognition in camp. And I like the way Ryan, I'd love to hear your opinion. I love the way Robert Saleh's approaching it. Because, when they asked him about, how it's going, he's saying, well, Bryce Hall's still there. Because as we saw last year, and I pointed out as the season went on and as the season ended, I thought he was really good. Like based on, being a later round draft pick, being his first year starting, I put up a lot of the numbers he put up, and in like 4 or 5 categories, he was like the best corner in the league, one of the best players in the league. Like he looked really good. And yeah, people said he didn't have the interceptions, he didn't have the picks, but he was a lockdown corner. And I say all the time, if I have a guy that can't cover for shit but picks the ball, but blankets everybody and can't pick it, I'll take the second guy all the time. Like a lockdown corner is awesome. And, he can develop as a pick guy. So I love, like Robert Saleh's pointed out, and as he's always said that, nothing's given, everything's earned. He said him and Sauce are, kind of going back and forth. So I think it's going to be interesting. I even said I wouldn't go as far to think that, that Bryce Hall might play heavily toward the beginning of the season, potentially for DJ or Sauce to, take his role. But either way, like, mentioned before, it's kind of like with the offensive line, kind of like with the pass rush. It's a good problem to have, right? Like we're talking about having too much talent, like not who's going to be the guy. Like we have all this talent. So I think Bryce Hall is definitely going to be a part in it. I'd love to hear what you think.
Yeah. I like Bryce Hall. I don't know if I'd call him a lockdown corner per se, but he's really solid cornerback number 2 in this league. And as a 5th round pick, that's money. Like the New York Jets had a lot of problems on defense last year, and Bryce Hall was not one of them. I think to me, Bryce Hall, CJ Mosley, and JFM were the 3 guys last year on defense we can count on to come in and do their job week in and week out. And then Quinnen Williams, it was like every other week. And that was pretty much it. So the interceptions, there's a little bit of like luck and randomness to interceptions too. Sometimes you'll see a guy get like 7 one year and then 1 the next year. So we'll see. I mean, that if Bryce Hall continued to get that amount of targets for another year, would he come down with some picks? I'm sure he would. But the passes defended were there, so he's getting his hands on the football a lot. And if he's your cornerback number 4, making no money, then our quarterback room is in great shape. I like Bryce Hall a lot. I also always like that he's a willing tackler. He kind of plays with the mentality of a safety. So he's a complete football player, which I appreciate about that too.
Yeah, I've mentioned it before. I'm a really big ACC football guy, so I watched him a lot of Virginia, and I just really liked him. Like he was actually a guy that I really hoped that we drafted. Like I felt like when he was healthy, he could have been like potentially late 1st round, 2nd round talent guy. Like he was really so it'd be interesting to see. But yeah, Sauce, man, wow, Jet fans are just so excited, and they should be. Like he's just gonna like the potential is just absolutely through the roof. Like you look at what this guy did in college, it's crazy. How like, he rose himself up. Like he talks about it, like in his interviews, how he started, like he talks about, he kind of like has that chip on his shoulder. He wasn't heavily recruited. He wasn't like recruited to like the top colleges. He had to claw his way up the roster. But man, we look at what he's done. Like I found it insane. Like I thought it was like not true. That's like, how could he play 1,000 coverage snaps and not allow a touchdown? Like that just doesn't sound possible. Like I was like, that can't be. Like it's crazy. Like what he brings to the table. Like I am just like Salah said, it could take a little time. Obviously, Hall might be the guy in the beginning, but man, the potential for him is like we could have one of the best corners in the league before we know it.
Yeah, and I think that's not an unrealistic expectation when you take a corner with the 4th overall pick. I think I like to see Sauce Gardner be a top 20 corner year 1, and then year 2 Pro Bowler, year 3 All Pro, year 4 in the conversation for the best corner in the league. I think that is a fair bar when you're talking about maybe the second best overall player behind Aiden Hutchinson in the draft, and far and away, in my opinion, the best corner being when that Stingley, hadn't really looked dominant since his freshman season at LSU. He's got the physical tools to do it. And if you look at, I think he could have that Jalen Ramsey type impact where he's really good right away, comes out the box ready to go. He'll give up a touchdown. He's going to wear his lumps. Some veteran's going to get him on a double move, but he's going to get some picks too. And I have a gut feeling that we're going to see at least one of those picks go back to the house, because he's electric when he gets the ball in his hands too. He's like he's got that. Not saying he's this player, but just in this one aspect of their game, when Ed Reed intercepted the ball and then he would all of a sudden turned into, a dynamic kick returner, punt returner. Almost Sauce has some of that just in that element of his game, not comparing him to the Hall of Famer overall.
Yeah, you can see it now, like on like your YouTube page, like when you go live, let it be like, "What have you done?" Like,
he's not. I always try to caveat that because people get, and rightfully so. People want to respect NFL history. I get it.
Yeah, man. So, you mentioned before, being like a hardcore Jet fan like myself, like my whole life, like huge Jet fan. So being a Jet fan my whole life, especially, yourself, how does it feel to finally have an edge rush? Because like, I feel like that's something that's been eluding us like for so long. Like that's something for decades now we haven't been able to find. We've tried, it hasn't worked out. Sometimes it's just damn neglected. Like we have guys that just don't even care. Like what's an edge rusher? like don't even pay attention to the position. And then we talk about specifically, like I said here, especially draft prospects. We haven't taken an edge rusher high. Obviously, Goulston, we try to forget about that. But before that, it's like Jonathan Abraham. Like it's not something we've done. Like it's almost crazy. Like I talked about when Joe Douglas came in, like it wasn't that hard to figure out. It was like the positions we needed the most help in were the positions we hadn't drafted high in a while. Offensive line. Like it was just right there. It was just obvious. So like I think that's like a really, really, big thing on its own. I'd love to, hear you think about that. Like just to like see the edge rush addressed, it's just awesome.
Yeah, it is. And I think I would say the same thing for tight end. I think those are the two position groups where we had nothing remotely impressive for so long, because we had a good wide receiver here or there, Brandon Marshall and Eric Decker. And then obviously, before that, Santonio Holmes, Braylon Edwards, the running backs. We've had a lot of really good running backs in my lifetime, and the offensive line has been stacked here or there. The corners obviously have been good. Linebackers, interior defensive linemen so really it was just edge and tight end like forever just ignored, and we didn't spend any high picks on them. I mean, tight end, we kind of swung and whiffed on Jason Morrow. Other than that, we didn't really invest too much in it. And then edge, it was a ton of third round, Ja'Kai Polite, Lorenzo Malden. I know I'm bringing up some painful memories, but now, it's like rocket science where you get what you pay for in the draft. Like if you want a good player at a position and you want to prioritize that position, take them in the first or second round. It's not groundbreaking here, but it's good to see. I can't wait to see Carl Lawson on this field, man. He is going to be, and the sack numbers, whatever. I don't know how many sacks he gets. I don't even think he'll get 10 sacks, honestly. His career high is 8. So does he get a career high off of a torn Achilles? Probably not, but that's fine, because to the eye test, he is going to be, you mentioned John Abraham. He's going to be not as good as John Abraham, because John Abraham was like a 17 sack guy, but the best edge presence we've had since John Abraham, with all due respect to the Calvin Paces of the world.
Yeah, and you mentioned, Carl Lawson. We could talk about that. I feel like there's a lot of potential there of what he could, potentially do this year. But you mentioned he's had history, he's had injury history, he's been around the league. You got guys like we mentioned, the draft prospects, Jermaine Johnson, Michael Clemens, like those, they just feel like two blank slates. Like Michael Clemens is a guy like that I should have went a lot higher. Like people talk about, like you watch this kid play, like he just manhandles dudes. Like he's just like, I think people were joking, remember, that he should play offensive line because like his arms and shoulders were like so big. Like he's just, you watch film of him, he manhandles people. It's ridiculous. So like even though he's a later round guy, I look at him kind of almost now the way I do Jermaine. I'm like, I feel like we have two top prospects at edge. And like you said, like Carl, has had stuff before. Those guys are blank slates.
Yeah, Clemens and there were some football people who had a second round's grade on him, but there was age concerns, and then he's got some decisions that he probably liked back. Nothing too crazy, nothing compared to what Deshaun Watson did, who only got 6 games for that. But maybe that's a topic for a different time. But Michael Clemens is going to be, the flip side of him being old, Harrison, is maybe he can contribute more right away because he's got an NFL ready body. So maybe first or second year, he can already be a rotational edge. And the numbers were really impressive. They're similar to Jermaine Johnson's numbers. If you look at him for his senior season in terms of pressure rate and sacks per snap, he's got long arms. He shows really good awareness for where the quarterback is moving in the pocket. So when the quarterback's stepping up, kind of changing direction and leaping back up into the pocket. And that's some of that you can't really teach too much. So I'm really, really excited to have Michael Clemens on this team. And maybe he can be a guy who takes over a Jacob Martin's role in a year or two. And he's like your primary backup edge rusher behind Lawson and Jermaine Johnson. I think that is probably a good role for him. Although Coach Whitecotton, defensive line coach, said he's been kicking inside too. So we could see him playing defensive tackle in certain NASCAR packages, third and long, stick him and JFM next to each other on the inside. Why not?
Yeah, without a doubt, man. And I get it, because like you look at it and you're like, oh, he's only 24. Like he's not that old, but I get, what people, I get, like what you mean. Because like, it's kind of like that Marcus May situation when, he's coming into his 5th year now and he's close to 30. But at the same time, like you say, he's a later draft pick. Be interesting if he could just, develop over those 4 years. We can get some quality stuff out of him, as a later draft pick. That'd be absolutely awesome. So yeah, so one of the other things I wanted to ask you about, I'd love to get your opinion on it, because I know who I think. I'm curious if you think the same person, maybe you think somebody different. Who do you believe will be Zach Wilson's top weapon of 2022, and why?
Elijah Moore, because I think he has the most complete skill set on this team, given the information we have now. Could Garrett Wilson come and blow us out of the water? And 2 months from now, I change my answer. Sure. But I think his ability to his burst off the line of scrimmage, his ability to separate and snap his hips around at the end of a long breaking route, his balance down the sideline, and he kind of has better contested catchability for a guy who's smaller and doesn't leap really high. Another player comparison, not saying he's going to put up the numbers that this guy put up, but he does have a little Antonio Brown in him in the way that he can win from the slot and from the outside. The toe drag swag on the sideline, the yak ability. To me, he's going to be Zach's go-to weapon. I think he hits the ground running, and he has a 1,000-yard season.
I love it, man. You and me were 1,000% on the same page. I feel totally the same way. Like when we drafted Elijah Moore, I was one of the people that, he's 5'8". Maybe he won't be best on the outside. Maybe he's more of a slot guy. I'm happy to say, and I've been saying, he proved me wrong. Like 1,000% proved me wrong. Like watching him play last year, and I feel like he doesn't get enough credit for it because, yeah, he was hurt and he missed some time. But if you watch him play, he was lining up against some of the best corners in the league. And he was going back and forth, play for play. They'd win one, he'd win one. He was being very physical. He wasn't backing down. I was like, I'm wrong. Like, I feel like he can be a true wide receiver one. Like, I do feel that way. And yeah, Garrett Wilson could totally be that too. Like, we could have 2 guys that are wide receiver ones, which is absolutely
There's
awesome.
No law against that. You bring that up. Like, you don't have to decide between the both of them. You can have 2 legitimate wide receiver ones. Ask the freaking Tampa Bay Bucks. They got 2, and now they have a Hall of Famer in Julio Jones.
Yeah, so people forget about all this stuff all the time. Also, is it possible for the wide receiver 2 1 year to have more yardage than the wide receiver 1? Yeah, that's happened before too. Like we've seen that happen. So, like, it depends where people line up. Depends how the season goes. We've seen slot guys on Jets teams before sometimes be like,
Yeah.
the top
Yeah,
yardage guy.
Jamison Crowder was our wide receiver one
Yeah,
for a couple of
that's
years.
literally that's literally
See
who I was
Hunter
thinking of.
Renfro with the Raiders. Yeah.
Yeah, so like Lindell's points out, she says more, but next year Wilson. Marcos points out, Garrett Wilson as well. I think he can, man, and that's the the beauty of it. Like so many people want him to like be the guy immediately, but like you look what happened with Elijah Moore. It takes
Right.
time. He struggled a bit in the beginning. Like the first couple of games were his one drop of the season was like I think in week 1 or week 2. Like you
Yeah, it was
struggle a bit in the
Carolina.
beginning. Yeah, it takes a little time, but as it went, he got better. He looked better. He played better, and he got banged up a little bit too. Like we see that, like bite your tongue. You don't want that to happen, but it happens with rookies, unfortunately. The NFL, like I've talked about before. The NFL is a different league, basically. Like you're coming into a much bigger hitting, more stronger mentality. So yeah, rookies get banged up all the time. So I hope Garrett Wilson can be great, but realistically, it's probably going to have a year like Elijah Moore where it's going to come on a little bit, take some time. Maybe he'll be great. Hopefully, doesn't get banged up. That's the one thing you got to hope for, that as a rookie, he could just stay 100% healthy. And if, God forbid, he does get banged up, it's something minor.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think that's, every day of camp is a success, that as long as we're healthy. Zach Wilson can go out there and take a dump directly on the football and throw 1,000 interceptions. And if nobody is,
I don't know if anyone's going to catch it. So
yeah, and as long as we don't have any tweets about medical or the cart or any of that, then it's a successful camp. How do you feel about playing guys in the preseason? Because I don't want to see a single important veteran touch the grass in the preseason. I'm done with it. I think you have your practices, you have your joint practices, where it's a more controlled environment. You can get everybody ready to go. If Hamza and Pinnock need to go out there and hit some people, if Quincy Williams needs to go out there and hit some people, if Zach needs to throw a couple passes because quarterbacks are so protected, whatever. But to me, guys like CJ Mosley, Corey Davis, George Fant, they don't need to be out there in the preseason to me at all for a snap.
So yeah, that's a good question. I have a twofold way of looking at it. The one way I would say is the preseason is a great way to see what you have in guys that you're not sure about. So like that's what I love about the preseason. Like that wide receiver 4 or 5. Like right now we have, maybe it's Rashad. He looked really good the other day. We don't know. Like there's a couple of guys that could maybe be that guy. So that's what I love about the preseason, seeing like the second or third guy, or see something like, God willing. Like I was at the Giant game when, I don't know if you remember, I can't remember the year. It was long ago back, but it was like that Victor Cruz's first game ever.
Oh yeah.
And I'm a Jet fan, but even as a Jet fan, I'm like, man, this is fun to watch. Like he's just absolutely killing it. So that's always fun. You always hope to see a guy like break out like that potentially in the preseason. At the same time, I mean, it is the NFL, so you want to, make sure your guys are ready to hit, ready to make contact. So I think it's a slippery slope. Like I think on one hand, you want to see the guys play. If they can't play, that's maybe not a good thing. But at the same time, if the guy has like an injury thing in the past, like let's say, fans coming back from injury, like he was banged up, maybe, he shouldn't play. Like maybe Larson shouldn't play because he's coming back from that horrible injury. But I don't know about all the starters because, like at the same time, you have to show that in the preseason, that's your first time against actual competition. So like, that's the thing with preseason. Like I look at it two ways. Like on the one, it's great to see the other guys, but at two, how many times, you see it all the time. How many times do we see in preseason a team like try something or install something new and realize it doesn't work? And we see them have to change something. So I'm kind of like in the fence there a little bit. Like, I guess if they're banged up and you're worried about maybe them getting hurt again, then yeah, don't risk it. It makes sense that the starter don't risk it. But otherwise, I do want to see the starters play, and gel together and, make mistakes potentially, because it's better they make that mistake now and realize that doesn't work than, in week 1 and next thing we know, we're down 14-0.
Yeah, so that definitely makes sense.
But yeah, man. So one of the last things, because I know for you guys that don't know, if you definitely check out Buffalo Jet Fan, he's got a show at 8 p.m. He does live. You guys should definitely check that out afterward. But one last topic I wanted to talk to you about was that offensive line, man, because I think it just looks stout. And as Joe Douglas talks about, like that was like the first thing, like I talk about all the time, like the first thing I realized, like this guy, maybe he's a great GM, was when the first thing he said to us was like, football's won and lost in the trenches. And I was like, yeah, finally, Finally, someone that gets it. Like, because that's 1,000% true. Like, I always compared like the offensive line, defensive line guys to like the frontline soldiers in an army almost, because they're the ones that are seeing all the action and all the violence, but they don't get all the credit and the recognition like the general does, like the quarterback does. So that offensive line, man, it looks really good. Like, talk about Mekhi Becton showing up just in absolute awesome shape, like looking ready to go. And Fant hopefully should be ready to go week 1. We got an outstanding guard combination. Love to hear what you think, man.
I think that somebody tweeted out, I think it was John from Jets Today, tweeted out like, what is the ceiling of this offensive line? And I was like, well, ceiling is undeniably top 5. Is that my prediction of where they'll land? No, because there's a lot of variables that go into that. But we have 3 Pro Bowl talents in Becton, AVT, and Tomlinson, and then we have 2 average to above average starters. Fant was definitely above average last year. McGovern, if he's your worst offensive lineman, you're in good shape. I've kind of made the point, and it's kind of like a backhanded compliment to McGovern. But if you took all 32 teams in the NFL, they're starting 5 offensive linemen, and every team, sent out their worst offensive lineman onto a football field. They all 32 teams. Connor McGovern might be the best out of the 32 in terms of all the worst ones. So that shows you like the balance of our offensive line. We don't have a Trent Williams. We don't have a Quinton Nelson yet. Becton or AVT could be one of those guys, but we have a lot of balance. I like the age range. There's no rookies. There's no ones over 30. They're relatively durable. They all fit the zone blocking scheme. They're a bunch of good athletes. All of them have a raw athletic score of over 9 besides Laken Tomlinson, which we know what he can do. So the ceiling is top 5. But I think, if they could be a top 12 unit, then that'll be enough to properly evaluate Zach Wilson heading into year 2. I do got to bounce there, brother. I got about 8 minutes until I'm on live on my channel. If you guys are in here and you're not done talking ball, or if Harrison's still on, obviously hang out with Harrison. But, I'm sure I'll be on a little bit later than him. So switch on over once Harrison is done shutting it down. And I appreciate you having me, man.
Oh, no worries, man. No worries. I'm really glad you got to come on and chat it up with us. It was awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll have to be back soon. Take care.
Definitely, man. Take it easy. So before we go, I'll just give you guys my quick take. We talked about the offensive line a little bit. I love it, man. Like Buffalo Jet fan pointed out, I think it could be one of the best in the league, right? We've talked about it before. I really like it. Shame he had to go quick. I wanted to bring up, I love the fact that he mentioned 3 Pro Bowlers and even Becton, because we forget, right, that Mekhi Becton, and I've talked about it, you guys have heard me talk about it here, that as a rookie, he looked like a potential Pro Bowler, right? We saw in his rookie season, we're like, this is a guy that looks awesome. This is a guy that should have been a Pro Bowler as a rookie, was slighted, and we were like ready. In year 2, we're like, if you guys remember, NFL Network, and I pointed out, NFL Network predicted, NFL Network said that Mekhi Becton was going to be a top left tackle in the NFL in 2021. Obviously, we all know what happened, but that was a prediction. That's what they expected, and that's what they said. So we're just really taking off from there. He's looking in good shape. He's healthy. He's ready to go. Man, George Fant, we've talked about, right? Excellent pass blocker. One of the best in the league last year as a pass blocker, which is important as a blindside tackle. Man, Laken, Pro Bowler, AVT, gonna be a Pro Bowler. And you guys know it's funny. I wanted to point out to Buffalo Jet fan too. You guys have heard me say it here 1,000 times. We're literally on the same page. If Connor McGovern is the weakest link on your offensive line, you're doing something right. You guys remember, I was huge on the Creed Humphrey train. I always felt that Connor McGovern is a good center if everyone around him is playing well. He's not going to be that guy that's going to elevate play. He's not going to be that cerebral center that picks up misalignments and call. That's not going to happen. But when everyone around him is playing well, like we saw last year, right? In the beginning of the year, when GVR played, it wasn't that good around him. He wasn't that good. Then LDT comes in. It's better around him. He plays well, right? He succeeds. So again, McGovern being the weakest on your offensive line is not a problem, and he can be a quality center if he has good guard play around him. And he has that in Laken. He has that in AVT. So, man, I think this could be a top offensive line. I do. I think we have one of the best guard duos in the NFL. I think that, again, if everyone can stay healthy, I think we have one of the best tackle duos in the NFL. And again, like me and Buffalo Jet fan pointed out, health is the factor, right? Health is the major deciding factor. But if everyone can stay healthy, man, this is a top offensive line. This could definitely be a top offensive line. So I appreciate you guys being here. I appreciate you guys tuning in and listening to the podcast, hearing what I have to say. If you're not subscribed to the channel, if you could, we'd greatly appreciate it. Those guys who haven't been here before, I put out content throughout the week. So if you check my channel throughout the week, I have pre-recorded content of short videos, takes on players, what happened in camp, all stuff like that. You guys know on Twitter, you can find my reports. I report stuff with the media, right? Things like the player interviews, coach interviews with Robert Saleh. I put that out in the morning. I put takes out. So you find me on there, but on here, check my content during the week. And as you know, Monday, we always got a live podcast. So Monday, I love chatting it up with you guys. Appreciate you being here. As you know, we always say, bring your comments, bring your questions. Let's talk it out. Let's have some fun. Let's talk about the Jets, right? So again, if you haven't, if you could please subscribe to the channel, that'd be very much appreciated. You can do so by clicking on the logo in the bottom right corner. Be very much appreciated. So again, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for being here. Hope you guys have a great rest of your week. Again, check the channel throughout the week. I'll be putting out content for you guys, and I will see you live next Monday, where we'll talk more about them Jets. Appreciate you guys being here. Have a great rest of your week. And remember, our time's coming, baby. Let's go Jets.